There are faces that make us feel that something is wrong, not monsters or extraterrestrial creatures, but images so close to human that they provoke terror. You recognize that moment instantly. Something is off. And before the brain has time to process and provide an explanation, your body already knows. This is not right. Psychologists and robotic researchers call this profound reaction the Uncanny Valley. It is a deeply rooted fear of things that look human but are not human, or at least not entirely so. Why did we develop such a strong reaction to faces that are almost human? Our brains are ancient structures, formed in a world of predators and prey, long before machines or cinema existed. So what if this reaction comes from an even more ancient place? What if it is the final trace of an era when Earth was not only the home of Homo sapiens? An era of other species that looked like humans but were not us? There were species we lived with, species we mated with, and species we fought. Perhaps the Uncanny Valley is not just a quirk. Today, we begin to analyze it. The original concept. The concept of the Uncanny Valley was first described by Japanese roboticist Mashahiro Mori in the 1970s. He noticed a strange behavioral pattern when people interacted with robots. At first, the more human-like the robot appeared, the more empathy and comfort people felt toward it. The relationship between human likeness and comfort was linear. However, when the degree of human resemblance crossed a certain threshold, about 80 to 90%, something strange happened. Instead of empathy, people felt discomfort, disgust, even fear. The robot looked too much like a human, but had subtly wrong details. This effect plunged suddenly into an area that Mori called the Valley of Strangeness. And it wasn't just robots. People felt similarly with wax figures lacking lively eyes, prosthetics with nearly accurate skin tone and texture, CGI characters in films that fail to capture lifelikeness perfectly, such as eyes that do not reflect emotion. There was something about these faces, too close to human, yet wrong in a hard-to-define way, that triggered an automatic response. You don't need to think about it. The reaction is instant. It lies deep within the mind. And that raises the question, why do we have this instinct? Our ancestors did not evolve alongside robots or cinematic monsters. Their world was filled with wild beasts, harsh environments, and other humans. A powerful and universal instinct like this does not arise for no reason. It evolved because at some point it helped our ancestors survive. Consider the fear of snakes. Primates, including humans, are hardwired to fear snakes, and not without reason. In a fascinating study, researchers showed monkeys objects that only vaguely mimic the shape of snakes. Even these crude forms triggered a stress response. Why? Because millions of years ago, snakes were deadly predators. Any primate that failed to recognize the danger would not survive to pass on its genes. Now ask yourself, could the Uncanny Valley be the same kind of ancient instinct? A warning system designed to help us recognize and fear other kinds of people. Those who look like us, but are not us. The existence of this valley suggests that at some point in history, there was a reason to develop fear toward faces that closely resembled humans. But what were we afraid of, or who were we afraid of? The answer may lie in the fact that for most of our evolutionary history, we were not alone. As we have analyzed, the Uncanny Valley is an instant reaction, an instinctive rejection of anything that looks almost human but has slight deviations. This instinct is too powerful and universal to be random. It must have evolved for a survival reason. 1. The deep origin of survival instincts. Human survival instincts all originate from the harsh selective pressures our ancestors faced. Let's revisit the example of the fear of snakes. Primates, including humans, are biologically programmed to fear snakes. This is demonstrated through studies showing that merely seeing shapes that vaguely mimic snakes is enough to trigger a stress response. The reason is clear. For millions of years, snakes were deadly predators. Any individual who failed to develop the ability to quickly recognize danger from this threat would not survive to pass on their genes. Survival depended on recognizing danger even when visual information was crude. Now, apply this logic to the Uncanny Valley. Why would our ancient brain devote precious resources to developing a special warning system solely for faces that are almost human? The existence of this valley suggests that at some point in evolutionary history, there was a real reason to develop fear towards shapes that looked like us, but had slight deviations. The Uncanny Valley may have been a system designed to help us recognize and fear other kinds of humans, those who looked like us but were not our own kind, the not us. 2. A world not only of Homo sapiens. To understand where this threat came from, we must discard the notion that modern humans, Homo sapiens, emerged on an empty Earth. For most of our evolutionary history, we were not alone. We appeared in a world already occupied by many different hominin lineages, ancient human species and our direct relatives, and many other more distantly related primates. Importantly, for a long time, our ancestors were not the dominant species. In fact, they were often more prey than predator. If you think Africa today is dangerous, you can hardly imagine the harsh conditions our Homo erectus ancestors had to endure. Giant predators such as saber-toothed cats always ready to pounce, aggressive animals such as territorial hippopotamuses ready to tear apart anyone who intruded, and numerous other terrifying creatures. 3. Facing hominin neighbors. However, the greatest danger came from creatures that looked most like us. Homo erectus ancestors encountered and shared landscapes with many other hominin species. Close neighbors such as Homo habilis and Homo rudolfensis, who were closely related yet clearly different in morphology, and mistaking a group of habilis for your own family when returning from a hunt could be the last thing you ever did. Small strange figures such as Australopithecines, small-bodied beings still existing around 2 million years ago, looking bizarre with chimp-sized brains, yet fully upright posture. Imagine a horrifying prehistoric scenario. After a long day of hunting, you rest while the children play nearby. You glance over to check on them and notice a slender figure luring your child away. Before you can grab your spear, the agile creature snatches the child and vanishes into the night. If being a parent today seems frightening, our ancestors likely faced literal child predators, beings that could eat our young. Strange observers such as Paranthropus may have been more passive watchers. Some researchers liken them to cows of the human lineage, built to consume large amounts of vegetation. They may not have hunted our children, but their presence must have been deeply unsettling. They walked upright and were clearly related to us, yet their body proportions were unusual. Large jaws, sloping foreheads, and lanky bodies, a constant reminder that they were not us. These subtle yet obvious differences, too human yet not our kind, created the perfect cognitive tension to trigger the Uncanny Valley. 4. Other primate threats. We must not forget the more distant primates lurking in the landscape of that era, the ancestors of chimpanzees and gorillas, of which we have only a few fossils in East Africa, meaning we almost certainly crossed paths with them countless times. And although they seem shy today, partly due to poaching and human technology, it is doubtful that they feared us 2 million years ago. And a monstrous primate that looked like it stepped out of hell, Dinopithecus, a giant baboon-like species with huge canine teeth, males possibly weighing over 170 pounds, 77 kilograms, its massive quadrupedal stance and saliva-glinting fangs defying description of the terror of encountering a troop of such aggressive animals. All of these species, from hominins to giant primates, created an environment where distinguishing enemy or danger from one's own kind was a vital survival skill. The Uncanny Valley may have evolved as a calibration tool, helping our ancestors instantly assess risk from beings that looked almost human. We have established that the Uncanny Valley instinct may originate from the need to distinguish between our own kind and dangerous, almost human beings during the time of Homo erectus. Now we fast forward hundreds of thousands of years to a time when our species, Homo sapiens, was rising, yet still not alone. 1. The mixture in the Homo sapiens era. Even as Homo sapiens became the most cognitively advanced human species, we still had to share the landscape with many other hominin species, subtly yet clearly different. In Africa, we lived alongside Homo naledi, a species with a strange mix of primitive and modern traits. Until 2025, their remains had only been found in a single cave system in South Africa, suggesting they may have practiced burial of the dead. Although we have no evidence of interbreeding with Homo naledi despite contemporaneous existence, their presence must have been deeply strange in the minds of the first Homo sapiens. In West Africa, a different hominin lineage existed for which no fossils have yet been found. Its existence is known only through the DNA of modern West African people. This ghost lineage interbred with West Africans as recently as 50,000 years ago. There is still much to learn about this hominin, and we hope fossil evidence will soon emerge. 2. Encounters outside Africa. When our species truly left Africa, the world became even stranger. In northern and western Europe, we encountered the Neanderthals. They possessed superior strength, but also remarkable intelligence and culture. Our history with Neanderthals is long and complex. The two species first met in West Asia more than 100,000 years ago. As Homo sapiens continued to expand into Europe, we gradually assimilated with Neanderthals. The earliest modern Europeans retained Neanderthal traits for a long time, but most were eventually eliminated from the population through selection. Today, Europeans retain on average less than 2% Neanderthal DNA, while Asian populations carry slightly higher proportions. In Asia, another species, the Denisovans, also lived. This is one of the most mysterious groups, and we have only recently discovered fossils of them. Further into Southeast Asia, we encounter small-bodied humans, Homo floresiensis, known as the Hobbit, and Homo luzonensis, another diminutive human species. Number 3. A complex relationship, fear and attraction. Despite all these differences, we did not simply fear these other species. We know for certain that Homo sapiens interbred with at least 3 others, Neanderthals, Denisovans, and a third ghost hominin in Africa. So what does this mean for the Uncanny Valley? If this instinct evolved to protect us from other human species, why were we attracted to them enough to mate? Could this explain why near-human faces evoke such complex reactions? A mixture of fear and fascination? The Uncanny Valley is not merely a mechanism of rejection. It is an instant risk-benefit assessment. At around 90% similarity, the face appears almost like our own kind, yet the small deviation signals potential danger, such as disease, enemy, or rival lineage. While at the same time, the face is still close enough to human to suggest the possibility of communication or mating, a potential biological advantage. Our reaction to the Uncanny Valley is a tug-of-war between the two most fundamental survival instincts, self-preservation and reproduction. We have seen that the Uncanny Valley is a complex reaction, including both instinctive rejection and an inexplicable attraction. This reaction certainly originates from deep survival needs in prehistoric times. There are 3 main hypotheses that explain the nuances of this response. The disease avoidance hypothesis: in a world without medicine, without doctors, and without knowledge of germs, epidemics could wipe out small groups of people in just a few days. And strangers, especially those with unusual appearances, were often seen as dangerous, carrying pathogens or evil spirits. Risk recognition, in this context, the ability to recognize even the most subtle signs of illness, could be the difference between life, death, and even chronic disease. Interestingly, there is evidence suggesting that we inherited genital herpes from Paranthropus more than 2 million years ago, Could this be an example of our instincts failing? Morphological warning: unusually pale skin, strange-looking eyes, jerky or unnatural movements, or even a slight change in posture. All were clues signaling that something was wrong, and the Uncanny Valley may be an evolved defensive mechanism to detect early signs of pathology before infection could spread. The identifying the dead hypothesis. A corpse is the ultimate source of contagion and a clear threat in the natural world. The eerie resemblance. A dead body still looks hauntingly human, yet completely lifeless. And for ancient people, the presence of the dead could signal danger, either a predator attack or a sweeping disease. Importance for the family. Quickly recognizing the death of loved ones was vital for performing rituals, avoiding the source of infection, or relocating. The boundary between life and death? Our brains may have evolved to detect the subtle boundary between life and death and react strongly to anything that falls near that boundary. And faces that look alive but not quite will trigger the same alarm system, which is why horror films succeed by using pale, lifeless skin and rigid robotic movements to terrify us, directly tapping into that ancient instinct, the enemy recognition hypothesis. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors did not only face leopards, hyenas, or saber-toothed tigers, they also faced other humans. Opponent warning: some were rival Homo sapiens groups, others were Neanderthals, Denisovans, or late surviving Homo erectus. Close enough to deceive vision, yet different enough to trigger caution. Distinguishing us and them, separating kin from enemies, was not just about skin color or clothing, it was about reading faces, gait, and expressions, which was especially crucial when life was at stake. Instant risk assessment. A Neanderthal entering your hunting territory. An Australopithecus lurking near your children. Is this you, a potential mate or a murderer? The fine-tuned system, the Uncanny Valley, may have evolved as a finely tuned warning system, an instinct to instantly evaluate faces that look almost human but not entirely right. And this may have helped ancient humans respond rapidly to very real danger from other hominin species, explaining why the feeling is immediate. Evolutionary consequences. One must wonder whether this instinct was responsible for the extinction of all other human species, quite possibly wherever we went. The extinction of all local hominin species followed. Although we did interbreed with some of them, this may have been only occasional, and even today, humans tend to treat others with hostility, and perhaps this is what happened to the other human species. So, where does this lead us in today's world? In the modern world, we rarely encounter the kinds of dangers that shaped our ancient minds. Most of us will never have to fight for food or territory. We no longer share the earth with Neanderthals, Denisovans, or late surviving Homo erectus. However, that fear still remains. The Uncanny Valley response is one of the strongest pieces of evidence showing that our brains are built from instincts that have existed for hundreds of thousands of years. You can sense someone's presence in a dark room even when no one is there. You notice subtle cues in wax museums and horror films. It is the same jolt, the same instinct, ancient and unchanged by time. What does that instinct tell us? It tells us that at some point, the ability to instantly distinguish between normal and almost normal was an essential survival skill. The theories of disease avoidance, identifying the dead, and enemy recognition all point to the same reality. Morphological deviation is a danger signal. Disease signal. If someone close to you has slightly pale skin and slightly stiff movements, your brain will scream a warning to avoid infection. Death signal. If a face looks too human but lacks the light of life, like a wax figure, it touches a primal fear of death and corpses, the greatest source of contagion. Hostility signal. If an individual looks like Homo sapiens but has slightly different features, such as the facial proportions of a Neanderthal or the gait of another hominin lineage, it becomes a red alert signal for potential conflict and competition for resources. The Uncanny Valley. is one of the last remnants of a prehistoric world full of threats we can hardly imagine. A world in which seeing another upright figure in the darkness could mean death, or worse. We must return to the most evolutionary of questions. Was this instinct the main factor leading to the mass extinction of other human species? Very possibly. Wherever Homo sapiens appeared, the extinction of local hominin species followed. Although we have evidence of interbreeding and shared genes, this may have occurred only in rare instances or isolated encounters. Humans, even today, tend to treat the other with immediate hostility and caution. This is a defensive mechanism proven through hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. When other human species confronted Homo sapiens, perhaps our uncanny valley instinct was strongly triggered, leading to hostility, relentless competition for resources, and ultimately extinction. In the modern era, the uncanny valley poses a major challenge in technology. Robot and AI designers and developers struggle with this boundary. To create acceptable caregiving or social robots, they must avoid the valley. They choose designs that are clearly mechanical or clearly cartoonish, rather than getting stuck at 90% human likeness. Virtual reality and CGI industries spend millions trying to overcome this valley. Whenever a CGI character looks dead or fake, as in some animated films or video games, it is because they have accidentally touched our ancient warning instinct. This fear persists as proof of our survival. It lies deep in our genes, a legacy of an evolutionary battle we are rarely aware of. And perhaps that is why this fear still exists. Because, long ago, it helped us survive. We have together explored a journey spanning millions of years of a single instinct, an indescribable, chilling sensation known as the uncanny valley. We began with the definition by Mashahiro Mori, where resemblance reaches its peak before plunging into the depths of revulsion. We asked, why is there such an intense reaction? The answer, as we have seen, lies deep in the evolutionary history of humankind. We cannot understand the uncanny valley without accepting the fact that our ancestors lived in a world full of beings that looked human but were not their own kind. This warning system is not a flaw of the brain, but a highly refined feature. Disease prevention. This instinct was the first line of defense in a world without medicine. It helped us immediately recognize even the most subtle signs of illness, weakness, or death, biological threats that could wipe out an entire tribe. Pale faces, lifeless eyes, stiff movements of an imperfect robot, all of these trigger the sensation of a corpse and the need to stay away. Recognition of hominin enemies. More importantly, the uncanny valley was a tool for distinguishing us and them. For hundreds of thousands of years, Homo sapiens ancestors shared territory with surviving Homo erectus, powerful Neanderthals, mysterious Denisovans, and deceivers like Australopithecus hunting the young. The morphological differences between these species were small enough to cause confusion at a distance, yet large enough to signal potential danger or competition for resources at close range. This instinct allowed our ancestors to make split-second decisions. Is this a mating partner or a mortal enemy? Our complex relationship with other hominin species, the fact that we interbred with at least 3 different lineages, explains why this reaction is not purely rejection. The uncanny valley is a tug-of-war between 2 basic biological commands. Survival command, fear. This face is dangerous or diseased. Reproductive command, attraction. This face is almost human and may be a viable source of genes. It is this cognitive conflict that creates the creepy yet irresistible feeling, a sensation of both wanting to flee and wanting to investigate. So what does this legacy leave us today? This fear is not just a psychological curiosity. It is a silent testament to a prehistoric era we rarely think about. It is an indelible trace of an evolutionary struggle in which our survival depended on quickly and accurately reading the smallest signals on a face. Although we no longer face Neanderthals, this instinct is still strongly activated in the technological world. In cinema and technology, when CGI filmmakers try to create hyper-realistic characters but fail in details like the eyes, they unintentionally awaken this primal fear. When robot manufacturers cross the safe boundary, they provoke disgust, not acceptance. The survival of Homo sapiens. This instinct may have been the decisive factor in the rise of our species. Immediate hostility toward the other may have given us a brutal competitive advantage, leading to the extinction of coexisting hominin species. We still carry alarm bells formed in the era of Homo erectus. You can feel the presence of an other in a dark room. You pick up subtle clues from wax figures. It is the same jolt, the same instinct, ancient, primal, and untouched by time. Perhaps it is one of the last remnants of a prehistoric world full of threats we cannot imagine. A world where seeing another upright figure in the darkness could mean death, or worse. And perhaps that is why this fear still lingers. Because long ago, it helped us survive. Call to action. Thank you for following this deep dive into the eerie side of human evolution. If you enjoyed these analyses of ancient human instincts, please like this video. And what do you think about the Uncanny Valley? Have you ever experienced this reaction? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to continue receiving stories like this. I will see you again in the next video.